Hi, I'm Betsy Cooper. I'm president of the AAUP, and I'm here to welcome you to the AAUP's conference on climate change in an age of misinformation. It's great to see everybody here, and I just want to make a few thank yous. First, I'd like to thank the committee that put this great event together. It's Carolyn Berensky, Eric Fromm, Sarah Hadir, Sandy Hicks, and Molly Hall, who has done everything. I'm sure Molly's in the hall. Is she still? Oh, there she is. Molly's our super graduate student and really spent a great deal of her time on this. I also want to thank the University Events Committee and Paula Santos, who's probably still running around. She did a great job. Everything looks beautiful. I also want to thank Karen Bradbury from White House's office, who really worked with us to get Senator Whitehouse here to give a speech this afternoon. With that, Eric, don't sit down again. So again, welcome to the event, and I'm going to turn things over to Eric Loomis, who's going to be introducing our panel. Thank you. Nope, not introducing the panel, sorry.
So I'm here to introduce a video that we were able to get from Bill McKibben. And for those of you who either know or don't know Bill McKibben, I'm a historian of the American environmental movement. And Bill McKibben is not only, I think, the most important environmentalist in the United States today, but I think he will go down along with people like Rachel Carson, John Muir, Howard Sennheiser, and a handful of others as really one of the most important environmentalists in American history. And he's also a very generous individual. So he agreed to record an introductory video for us that I'm going to show here in a second. Among the things, though, really quickly, that Bill McKibben has done, in 1989, he wrote a book called The End of Nature, which is really the first major popular book to bring the issue of climate change to the general public. And it was a very profound book, a book that really caused a great deal of conversation, and a book that really raised national, international awareness about this issue. The other thing I'll mention about him, and one of the reasons I think that he is one of the most important environmentalists in American history, is that he's also the founder of the 350.org movement, a movement dedicated really more, I think, effectively than any other organization to battling against climate change and trying to do something about this terrible situation that we are finding ourselves in. And one of course, the things that he has been most effective in doing is leading the fight, along with the thousands of supporters that he has gained around the nation, around the world, leading the fight against the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have channeled very, very dirty oil from the oil sands of Canada through the American Midwest to Texas, and really, had this been passed, would have been a sign that maybe the U.S. really isn't going to do anything politically about the issue of climate change. And I fully believe that had Bill McKibben and the 350.org movement not led this fight and not organized events in Washington and around the country, that President Obama would have passed or would have signed off on this pipeline. But because of this pressure, Obama did not do that. And I think it's very, very, very significant. So I won't go on. I won't go on anymore. I'm just going to start the video right now. So,
with the effects of climate change on
we'll start from the beginning.
Hello, everybody. This is Bill McKibben. I very much wish that I were there with you. And in fact, I'll be in Rhode Island in a month because my daughter's college graduation is coming up. But for today, I'm off on the other end of the world. I'm in the Antipodes in Tasmania. where we're having the usual huge fights, as we are all over the world, over this question of whether we're going to be able to come to terms with climate change fast enough to do anything, whether or not we're going to be able to keep fossil fuel in the ground. Let me begin by saying two things about this conference that are significant. One, that it's connected with Senator Whitehouse, who has done as much or more than anybody in the city of Washington to make us come to terms with climate change. Along with my own senator here from Vermont, Mr. Sanders, he has been the absolute most faithful vote and organizer on all things climate related and more. He's been a just remarkable voice. His series of weekly colloquies on the floor of the Senate may not have succeeded yet in educating his colleagues across the aisle, but it has succeeded in educating millions of Americans, and for it we are so grateful. I'm also glad that there's a labor union that's helping organize this event. From the start of our work with organized labor, or parts of it, has been a key component of this battle. And when we say we're fighting the Keystone Pipeline, it was amazing to be in league with the big bus drivers union and with the nurses union and with all the people who deal with the effects of climate change on a pretty much daily basis. Our friends at places like SEIU, turn out in that huge wave when there were great demonstrations. This fundamental coalition of people who care is stronger all the time. Strong enough almost that I think we're beginning to beat back the forces of denialism around climate change. And I'm very grateful that you're talking about this today. I want to just make the point that most of that denialism comes from a very specific place. It's part of an engineered plan by the fossil fuel industry to make sure that we never took serious action on climate change. And we know that for certain now, thanks to really great investigative reporting from places like the Los Angeles Times and the Columbia Journalism School. A series of really in-depth and hard-hitting investigations that began to be published in September of last year make it clear that the most important, the biggest of the fossil fuel companies, Exxon, knew absolutely everything there was to know about climate change in the late 1970s or early 1980s. They had good scientists studying the carbon molecule, which after all was their bread and butter. And those scientists told the executives how much the planet was going to warm and roughly when. And those executives put that knowledge to work. They started climate proofing all their own installations, building their drilling rigs high enough to account for sea level rise and so on. But they didn't tell the rest of us. They spent tens of millions of dollars investing in building the infrastructure of deceit and denial and disinformation that's kept a phony, faux, pretend debate going for a quarter century. These are the veterans of the tobacco industry that these front groups and quote unquote think tanks hired to do exactly the same thing they did for cigarettes. Sow doubt, slow down change, lock in a few more years of profit, even at, as we now know, the cost of unbelievable damage to the planet, its people, and everything else that lives here with us. This has been a harrowing year, the hottest temperatures ever recorded on this planet. A huge increase in the temperature of ocean waters that's driving destruction on coral reefs this spring all over the planet. The ongoing acidification of ocean waters everywhere, including in the beautiful sounds and bays off the coast of Rhode Island. The endless march of ever stronger storms. I'm headed soon to Fiji for a couple of days to talk with our colleagues there in the wake of the devastating cyclone that hit in early winter, one that featured the highest wind speeds ever recorded in the Southern Hemisphere. So, the work that you're doing is of the utmost importance, and you are, for better or worse, joined in that work of confronting denialism by that great educator, Mother Nature, who is doing her damnedest to show us what's going on. I'm not confident that we're going to win the fight against global warming. It's not going, science is dark. But I am confident we're going to fight, and increasingly that fight is working. We're beginning to be able to best the fossil fuel industry, even with all its money. And that's because of people like you willing to put yourselves on the line in this fight. So thank you enormously for that.